Um,
Good afternoon, everybody. It will, of course, be good morning when this is released. So I don't know. I guess I need to come up with a standardized greeting that works instead of saying that every week. Welcome to episode number 35. I'm your host, Menelik Fernandez, and this is Run It Back. And I start this show pretty much the same way every time. So let's go ahead and go through that. The premise of Run It Back basically is that we take teams that have played previously and we go through that game that had happened in the past and we run it back, so to speak, where we talk about, what worked, what didn't work, the game plan, the scouting process, some details that are like intimate from that particular team. And for quite some time now, we've been very fortunate, as we are today, to have assistant coaches from one of those teams lend the perspective of that team going into that matchup. So today we're looking at Vienna DC Timberwolves versus, and forgive me, I am definitely going to mispronounce
oh,
this.
I'm waiting for this one.
Raiffeisen
Raiffeisen.
Raiffeisen Flyers.
Raiffeisen, yeah.
And this will be from Vienna's perspective. This game took place on December 19th, 2020. And so, as I mentioned, we've been very fortunate through many of these episodes to have an assistant coach from one of the teams join us. So today, we're very fortunate to have Stefan Grassegger join us, who is a coach in Austria. And I'm going to try and do him some justice with a little bit of an introduction here. Steph has actually achieved the highest basketball coaching license that you can achieve in Austria. He's been an assistant coach at, and here's one more I'm going to brutalize, Osterstreicher.
Oh, Dreiskirchen. Arcadia Dreiskirchen. Oh, that's, yeah. Arcadia Dreiskirchen.
There's no way. I'm sorry.
Okay. let's just say the Lions team that plays in the first division, because there's a Lions team in the second.
That plays in the first division. He's been an assistant coach at Arcadia. I think I can get.
Yeah.
Dreiskirchen.
Oh, that's good. Okay. That's pretty close.
one for three. We're getting there. He's been an assistant coach, of course, with the Austrian men's national team, which he still is currently in. And he's also currently with Vienna DC since 2010 in various roles with the youth, moving up to the higher spot, and is currently an associate head coach. So, Stefan, thank you so much for joining us. I feel super fortunate to have you here today, lending your perspective and sharing the game. Very happy. And just as a side note, I've been in several clinics with you throughout the pandemic. So I believe I hosted one that Enrico did that was Euro Concepts, that was on Rising Coaches. And I think I've been in 2 or 3 other ones where I've seen you speak. So I'm a huge fan. Just, I don't know if you know that, but like, I love your perspective. I really like the way that you share the game. So I'm happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, Coach, thank you for that kind introduction. And I'm happy to be here as well. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys, exchanging ideas. I think this should be a two-way street, more so than me, I don't know, celebrating myself for a game plan that, first of all, we developed as a staff, and second of all, most importantly, our players really made us look like geniuses in that game. So I think not paying them credit would be a mistake. So here I do it. So our players did a great job, and again, like, I'm really honored to be on, and yeah, let's talk the game, I'd say.
I love it. So normally I start with preparation and what goes in, but for international basketball, some of us, like myself, are naive. Maybe you can give us a rundown a little bit as to the structure in your country and what level you're playing at, and like just sort of what type of game this is right here. Just give us a little background if you could.
Yeah, here this game was the second round, or I should actually say the 11th round of the regular season. So the second round of the back leg of the regular season was what the league does here is that after playing a home and an away game against every team, they split the league. It's a league of 10 teams into a top group and a bottom group. First 6 teams are automatically qualified for the playoffs. As a point of reference, Wels is perennially one of the top 5 teams of the league. They normally fight for playoff spots. Our team is one of the bottom teams because we mainly play with young guys. Since, first of all, we have a basketball academy, and second of all, we are not as financially strong as other teams. I think there's no shaming in admitting that. And yeah, the game was between, I want to say at the time, the 5th spot and us the 9th spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the league in Austria, are there like similar division structures? Like, is this first division,
Right.
second division? How does that break down with that?
So we have a first. So here in Austria, like the first division basically is a professional league.
Right.
But there are like varying degrees of professional players. For example, our team doesn't have as many as the first place team,
Right.
Apfenberg. But all in all, it's a professional league. There is a number of like a minimum number of players that have to play professionally. I don't know where that number is. And the second league is like it's a mixture of semi-professional players and professional players. And those two leagues are the top leagues, obviously. And between those two leagues, there's relegation and promotion. And below that, there's a more regional league. So as opposed to Germany, where there are like 3 nationwide leagues, basically, Pro A, the Pro B, and obviously the Basketball Bundesliga, there's only 2 here in Austria.
Okay. Got it. So now let's move into to the prep for this particular game. So we're in December. You're mentioning you're something like 10th or 11th round in. Had you played this team before? How much of a time period have you had off from the previous game to this one? When do you start this scout? All that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. We had a double round there. So we only had 2 days off before this game.
Okay.
But we did start scouting and preparing actually for that game more than a week prior, because we thought that with what we tried, we'd have good chance at surprising them. And yeah, sorry, what was the third question?
The second half was like you have 2 days
if
off.
We played them, yeah. If we played them before, sorry, I just read that Lamar played Treskirchen. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. We have to talk about that later.
Hey, he loves Vienna. He talks about it all the time, so we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Rightfully so, sir. Rightfully so. So actually, we played them. We played them away already, pretty early in the season, and we tried a completely different approach to that game. And we got smoked. We got smoked by their main player.
Okay.
So we deliberately decided to talk about this game early and prepare early, because we needed to take a completely different approach this time around.
So when you say early, how long are you giving yourself? And then going into the details of the actual process, how many games out are you watching? Are you watching several of their games? I mean, are you watching specifically the first time that you played? And like, what's going into the process for you that you're going to give to your guys or to your staff?
I mean, ideally, ideally we would watch like an infinite number of games. Like there's some teams where I struggle to get a read on, or where I'm looking for specific things. If I have time, I watch 6 to 7 games. Normally I'll try to watch a minimum of 2 games. Ideally, and we did for this game, it was 3 games plus our last game.
Okay.
To get a good read. Yeah. On them.
So,
but here again, it was fueled by the fact that their best player, he's a 37-year-old legend in Austria, probably one of the best big guys of the league, if not the best, I don't know. But he had his first career triple-double against us. So our plan let me be more clear about it. My plan super backfired, because I was really adamant about it to our head coach. We got to do this. My head coach was like, I don't know. And I was like super convincing. And yeah, I had to make up for my mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what actually goes in, and if there's a report delivered to your guys, or if it only goes to your staff, and like who does, like you had mentioned, basically it was your scout. So, does all of the coaching staff participate in it, or is it you present it to them and then present it again to the guys? Give me the rundown of what that looks like in the 2 days leading up to this game.
So what we do basically is that our head coach watches the game without cutting it. He tries to get a feel for everything, and my job is he basically watches 1 to 2 games before our game.
Right.
And I'll watch as many as I can get in, as I said, and then I'll try to cut down and highlight the important things where I think that we can attack them, where I'm afraid that we might struggle. So I think basically it's basically the same like in all of Europe, and my approach doesn't really change from national team level to a club level, with the only difference being the amount of stuff I watch plus the amount of info we share. In the past, like 2 years ago, and also with the Dreiskirchen team, we had separate reports for coaches and for players. But we found that for the club, at the club level, and everything basically I'm saying is for our club, more streamlined information made more sense because we are a younger team. For example, if I throw our starting point guard at the national team, I can throw him a report like this per player. Whereas with our young guys at the club level, we got to streamline it more. That's what we found.
Very interesting. So I will disagree with you on one thing that you said. Okay. You said it's probably the same all the way across Europe. So far, I think this is kind of the thing that I found most awesome about this show, in that like questions are fairly similar week to week in what I ask of people, but I find that there's tremendous differences between what coaches are doing in terms of how they're planning for the matchup, how they're delivering the information, what actually goes on that scout. And that to me, like, you know, not everybody, basketball is not for everybody at higher levels, I suppose, right? But like for me, I love it. I love those differences. I like hearing like the reasoning behind everything. So that being said, and I'm sorry, we have a special guest. Say hello.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi.
That being said, what actually makes the paper copy that you're going in? Like, so what was, okay, what actually makes the copy that you're giving to the guys? I mean, you did send to me, but let's talk about like the importance of matchups, the importance of actions, you know, the ways that you want to play them, screen coverages, all that kind of stuff. What are the intricate details that you prepare for in preparing for a game like this?
Actually, with our team, with our young guys, it varies. Against some teams, for example, against the top team of the league, we got to be as honest as to realize that we don't have the clear advantage in one matchup if we go starter to starter.
Yeah? Right.
So versus a couple of teams, we try to attack concepts with not so much players, but we try to take advantage of a pick and roll coverage, of some situations. For example, if there's a long play with lots of false motion, without instead of trapping the final pick and roll, maybe there's a chance where we can trap I don't know, a handoff or something. So there we try to attack concepts against teams where we believe that we have an advantage by eliminating players. We go more towards the players. Here in that game, first of all, we tried to eliminate the player that killed us the last time. And since they have a couple of really experienced guys, we realized that if we do something gimmicky, we cannot like jumping into zone because we're a man-to-man team. So for us, zone to a degree is a gimmick. If we do something gimmicky, we have to do it mid-possession where we don't give their player quality time to dissect us. Because if we throw them a zone, the whole possession, they're going to score against us anyways. So this is the thought process.
I noticed a couple plays where it looked like that happened in this game. So then what about like let's talk about what you do as your defaults versus special situation type things for this game. So specifically, I like to ask a lot of the time about like screen coverage, just because I think it's a good representation of the way a coach thinks. Like, do you play a base coverage, or do you have the ability to switch between various things? And like, do you extrapolate that to the other things that you do, where it's like, we play particular base sets, but within this game, we want to get to this action within that set, or we want to throw in a wrinkle here instead? And like, how are you delivering that to your guys?
So I think we're better doing that at the defensive end from what I've noticed this season so far. So the way we've been doing it for the last 3 years, we tried to have a passive base coverage and an aggressive base coverage, so that when we want to adjust from, I don't know, a player who's a tremendous pull-up shooter where we have to hedge, we have something in our bag of tricks that covers aggressive pick and roll defense and something that covers passive pick and roll defense. Like in the first year, we channeled or iced every ball screen.
Right.
And within that, we had, okay, we can ice at the line of the screen. We can ice further back. And if we ran into a complete trouble, we just trapped ball screens. And the added effect of that was when the way we taught pick and roll, or we teach pick and roll still, we differentiate between aggressive and passive coverage. So our defense helps us in our offensive development as well. Long story short, this year we have two main coverages, and we this time differentiated by location of the pick and roll.
Okay.
If the pick and roll is from the middle going to the outside, or like an elbow out pick and roll, we hard hedge it.
Mm-hmm.
And everything going from the outside to the middle, we next. So Mike and Jimmy probably know what the next defense is. Lamar and Chris, I hope you...
I got it. I'm there too.
And coach, you also?
Yeah, I'm there as well. Yeah, so it's like bringing the nailed defender over and then kind of switching the ball defender in behind to go to the next defender that was originally guarded by it.
The way we normally... Okay, Chris is good. The way we normally teach to our guys, it's a run and jump on a pick and roll. That's how we teach.
Run and jump on a pick and roll. I like that. That's a good terminology. I also noticed just now that you call icing channeling sometime as well. I've never heard that term before. That's
I how should I say, like, our guys think probably that I originated the term because they heard it the first time with me, but I just blatantly and unapologetically I stole it from Martin Schiller at the Salt Lake City Stars, who used it from Quinn Snyder. There's a great clinic on his Utah, right? On his pick and roll coverage, on the Coaching You, the one by Channel 2, Channel 3. Jimmy's there.
Yeah,
Jimmy's all there.
We know that.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of Schiller as well. Jimmy knows that. I like the first 4 weeks or 5 weeks that they were undefeated this year, I was sending him updates every week, just like, hey, he's crushing it over there. So let's talk about like in game here and how relevant did your scouting report and your preparation end up being as you were in the game? And how early did you start making adjustments? And sorry, I like to compound my questions together.
Good.
And from that, like, what in hindsight was missing from your preparation process that you think might have given you more of an advantage, if anything, if it wasn't just execution issues at certain points?
I think the first thing that what we tend to do, and I think it's in the last possession actually of the first quarter, once teams dissect our next coverage, we completely abandon it. So we just hard hedge everything.
Right.
Actually, in all of the 3 games that we've won thus far, the same thing happened. People started attacking our next with baseline cuts or 45 cuts. And then we completely went to our pick and roll hedge coverage everywhere on each ball screen. So that was one thing we could have done earlier when we saw, because if I remember correctly, we didn't adjust it, but we caught 1-3 by them on the last possession of the first quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, the jump into zone was something we hadn't done before that game, but which is now a staple in our defense. We don't use it every time, but it's something that we have prepared now. And yeah, what was the adjustment? It was funny because the one thing, and I talked to a player of mine today, and I told him that I was going to be on this podcast, on this show. And he said, like, the one thing you should have shown was the way we talked energy into our guys at halftime, because we were only down like by 8, and you've seen the game, obviously.
Yeah.
We should have been down by 20, like, just in terms of energy. And that's something I found with our young guys. The more we stuff into them, the more we need to help them with energy. Like, it's been that way every game in the last couple of weeks. The more complex we got, the more they had to focus. And that's not a knock on the players. At the end of the day, some of them are 17, 16, so they're like still in the process of learning the game and in the process of finding out what they can contribute to our team. So if we give them then 5 million adjustments, it tends to mess with their energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mental
agree.
and cognitive overload. Mike, I completely agree. So what we did at halftime, and that was the most important adjustment. Like we just said, hey guys, I mean, I won't repeat what I said in there because it's not
There
PG
were
13.
choice words used. They were very
Yeah, but
specific
we
and
just
pointed.
said, guys, show that, go out there and play like you're the baddest on the planet.
Right. Act as if, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And if you just watch me, and I know there's probably uh more pleasant things on the eyes. But if you watch me like on the sidelines in the second half, I I basically became a cheerleader. Like I wasn't barking out instruction as much as I was like, hey, let's go, guys, let's go. Like, trying to like get the adrenaline going, and that was, I think, an important thing actually. Something obviously as a coach with a tactical mindset, you don't want to have to do too much, but if you overload them, then you have to help them to a degree.
So, talking a little bit more about in-game, what sorts of things are you tracking on the sidelines? What's of merit to you in the box score, say at like halftime? And from that, like, how much does that allow you to still? And I mean, we had a discussion about this last week, but like, just basically to the point of when I'm doing a lot of stuff that I have to write down, I can't coach the same way as if I'm just, watching the game and eye testing certain things. So what are you keeping track of? What is important to you in the box? And, does that still allow you to coach and feel comfortable in the flow of the game from what you're doing there?
Mm. I don't keep track of anything anymore. I tried it, used to try it, but as you said, same thing happened to me.
Hold on.
And then I,
Right
I
there for
ended
you.
up I ended up not keeping track of my stuff, but not being focused on the game.
Right.
So again, if the role distribution is like, let's say if you have like 4 guys on your staff or 4 assistant coaches, and let's assume I'd be the defensive assistant coach, then it's easier for me, okay, to focus on defense. And if I don't have the scout, I can, I don't know, chart deflections. Deflections is something that I think is interesting to chart on a defensive end. And on an offensive end, it's interesting to chart how often do you break the paint by penetration or post ups or whatnot. But honestly, I don't track anything because I find it hard to focus. I trust my eye more than I trust the numbers.
Right.
What I do, however, take a look at is the plus minus. I think that's something
Okay.
that's important to see, because we, especially with our young guys, we had a couple of guys who were like didn't shine up in the stat sheet that much, but they had incredible plus minus stats because they knew how to play in the flow of the game. And the relation of shots attempted by the opponent to offensive rebounds is something that's interesting for me as well.
So like there's many coaches that I have this debate with, one or two of them in this call as well. But like I value plus minus as well. And I value like lineup matching. And the argument obviously can be made that the sample size for the amount of games that we play is way too small. Obviously makes sense, but there's still some value to it in my mind. And if it aligns with what I'm eye testing, then I tend to lean on it a little bit more. So it's intriguing that you say that. And I value the perspective of other coaches who are like, nope, that's toilet paper. Forget about it. Like, but it's something that I've leaned on and trusted. What about lineups and substitution patterns for you guys? How does that work? Do you sort of script it? Do you rely on previous game lineups, and or are you doing it by feel while you're there?
I think we're the first thing we do is we kind of decide of if we want to go with our base lineup and force the other team to adjust to us,
Right.
or if we adjust to them. With our basic starting lineup, or two variations, the first one, we can go super big. So
Right.
we have like a guy that would be a small ball 5 play on the 3, or we can go super small where we play with 2 4s. That's the first adjustment we make, especially since we have such a young core and such young players. We go by what we see in the practice, because sometimes we can have guys, for example, the kid that banked in the 3-point shot at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the game. Maybe in practice for 2 weeks straight, he's awesome, and then he like gives you nothing for 2 weeks straight. So there's there are so many inconsistencies, especially with young guys at that senior level, at least with our team, that we evaluated, aside from a couple of our starters, basically our point guard, our starting foreman, our starting 3-5, whatever he is, where we evaluate on a week-to-week basis. And I think we could do a better job with lineup analytics. I think that's something we as coaches and our program has to improve in. But as of right now, we go by feel.
Love it. So the last thing I want to talk about just before we get into the film element here is the post-game report that you construct. I mean, you sent it to me. You guys put together a video sort of what you do, but talk about that process a little bit. Are you doing it every game? Are you giving it to every player? How do you avoid the dance of being too negative, like, hey, you just didn't do this, as opposed to like, hey, I'm trying to teach you how to be better? Like what goes into that whole thing for you there?
I think, to be honest with you, I think there's like not a strict guideline in terms of where's the cutoff to too much negativity and or too little. Obviously, you don't want to like kill the guys in video every time, but sometimes you have to, you know.
Right.
Like one rule of thumb for me, especially with a young team, is how does our effort look? I'll give you an example. We play a game. In 2 days against one of the top 3 teams of the league, and we got smoked by 40 points or 50 points even in the first game. And I did the scout now, or I'm doing the scout currently, and I'm thinking like, yeah, I mean, we did everything we could do in our powers. If they hit like 60% from 3, and we don't make layups, 1-0 layups in that game. I mean, obviously you got to practice and everything, but my guy's not going to miss on purpose. However, if he goes to closeout and doesn't run the shooter off the line, like we said in the scout, or I don't know, guy beats him to the middle for the 5th time in a row, that's where we get negative. But I think, again, it's something you have to evaluate on a game-to-game basis. If, I don't know, if my under 19 from 3 years ago that I coached plays again, it's the second league team, the leash will be longer,
right?
Sort of. But they're like some universal must-dos, like sprinting back in transition. Doesn't matter if you're a young guy or the veteran, the oldest guy. If you're not running back, you're gonna get called out on video.
Do you have like a standardized length that you try to keep it under? Is your post-game report like one video for everybody, or do you send the individual clips to individual people? Like how do you do that typically? What's the format?
How honest do you want my answer to be? No, the thing is, coach always tells me, like, also with the scouting, keep it beneath 15 minutes. And I mean, for that game, since we prepared like super extensively, we split the video to 2 sessions of 15 minutes, so it was okay. But it varies.
I'm sorry to cut you off there, Stefan. I would say even that is probably long compared to what a lot of coaches are doing over here. I think a lot of guys over here are like, 6-8 clips, bang it out, like still not doing this. This is something that's really important to us, kind of deal, and going from there. So like as I said, I'm a fan. I've watched some of your clinics. Sorry, my daughter's going a little nuts in the background. I've known you, or at least have the assumption or the viewpoint that you're a pretty good teacher and you're always searching for new ways to deliver that message type deal. So it's good to hear what you're doing, and always wondering like what that process looks like. So if you're always reevaluating, I'm curious to know in future what you think when you're looking at it, as to how long you're keeping it, if you're making any adjustments, all that type deal.
I think you gotta stay on your toes, and it doesn't matter. Not only in terms of, I don't know, maybe moving from, like I did, from youth national teams where we barely scouted, like, or that didn't give out scouting reports, but only like showed it on clips, for example, with the under 20, to the men's national team where the reports are super extensive. And here with the club level, like the younger we got, because like in the first year we had a veteran team, the less extensive the scouts got. But then again, this year, I think I'm pretty sure that at times I did a bad job of relaying my message. So actually, we changed the format of our scouting reports from the last game to the next game. So I can send you that later.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. That'd be great.
Because we evaluated, and like we said, okay, I think we're still not getting to the point, or I'm not getting to the point because I'm responsible for the scouts. Let's try something different. So especially that's the great thing about our program. And I'm forever grateful. And I need to shout out my head coach, Hubert Schmidt, who's also the head coach of the women's national team. Like, as much as we're developing young players, he also lets me develop as a young coach. And here I can, throw different ideas, scouting report, video ideas, game plan ideas to the wall and see if they stick. So this
love it. Love the fact that it sounds like an open forum and everybody's opinion is valued, because that to me is sort of the premise of this show, where it's like, you might not do this the way that I do it, and that's fine. I want to hear what you're doing and why you're doing it, type deal. Let's dive into some film here. So I don't know if you're familiar with what the process looks like here, but I mean, basically I made an edit of your game. It's about 6 minutes long. And for anybody who's listening later on instead of watching the film currently, basically I'll play it and then I will sort of describe the clip as best I can for the people that are listening. And then I'll come back to it and then just sort of, hey, what's your perspective? What did you do well? What do you see? We just want a film session with you as to what you think from all of this. So this is very early in the game, real simple one, transition threes. So, I mean, all we got is a run up, left slot to right corner pass, knocks it down. What do you think? Early in the shot clock, transition threes, is it situational? Is it personnel based? What's your overall philosophy?
Since you probably see me clapping here, standing up enthusiastically, we're a 3-ball team. We against some teams, if we shoot less than 30 attempts, we're not gonna win. So early transition threes and early threes after offensive rebounds should be a staple. And to be honest with you, we're not there where we want to be with these shots. And again, there's something that has to do with the scouting at times. Like you said, with the wrinkles on the plays, we noticed that when we say, okay, if we run, I don't know, four side, we don't have four side, but if you say, okay, four side, we got to flip that screen because we want to have the 4-man in the tag. Hey, for us at times, this is it's not too much info. The guys do it, but then we get so worried about getting into that flow of the action that we lose one of our biggest strengths, and that's the transition three. Actually, our club holds the record of threes attempted in an Austrian league game, like all-time record at 63 attempts.
63 attempts. Wow. I think
in an overtime game, but still.
I think at the college level here in Canada, my team last year had 2 games where we shot fewer shots, not threes.
Oh, wow.
Fewer attempts in the entire game. And we're playing with a 24-second shot clock as well. Just as a side note, if he ever ends up watching, this guy that's got the strange one-hand shot where he takes the guide hand off, he can shoot it. Man, I was watching the game. I was like, okay. So we get into a little bit of 2-3 in here. Doubling in the post is happening. And I forget what my notes said already. Sorry. Where you help from, and then dealing with offensive rebounds. So for anybody
sorry. Go ahead. You go ahead. Sorry. You go ahead. I already cut you off.
No, it's all good. For anybody who's listening, they're in a 2-3 zone. It's the ball's punched. It's reversed to the other side. It's there's another reverse and a drive attack. Corner 3 from the left offensive side. Then they get the offensive rebound, and they're still in it. And then I think there's another 3 here. Yeah, it's a wing 3 on the other side of the floor. So basically my questioning had to do with, at the beginning of the clip, the doubling of the post on the entry, where you guys tend to double from, what your principles are on it, how you handle cutters out of the double. And then with the offensive rebound, what you guys' philosophy is on the second chance opportunity in a clip like this.
Can you come back to the beginning of the possession, like the
sure. Just like I was about to say, if you need me to pause or rewind anywhere, just let me know.
It's not as perfectly visible here, because our 5-man already anticipated the post catch, the punch in. But what we did in that game is that we started in man-to-man, and whenever there was a post-up or a big to small back screen, we jumped into a 2-3 zone. So basically, in a normal half-court offense, our 5-man would be with number 10 here, and he would aggressively drop down. Oh yeah, sorry, you're not seeing my cursor. Would aggressively drop down.
Believe me.
Yeah. Would aggressively drop down to build that 2-3 zone. And here it's best case scenario because our small ball 5, big ball 3 guy is in the back row as well. And this number 7, Davor Lamisic, he's the guy that tore us the second a-hole in the first game.
Right.
So we said, okay, we go into zone, but whenever he gets into proximity of the rim, we double from wherever we can. In a man-to-man set, we would double from the baseline, from the 4th spot. But here we said, hey, as long as you get in and he has to pass the ball out, we're fine with that.
So that's interesting, because that actually was one of my later questions, where I noticed you doubled from a different, same spot on the floor, but from a different angle, right? Where there's another one where you actually end up getting the steal out of it. So like he comes top side here to double, and then on the other one, as you mentioned, he comes baseline side. You end up getting the steal out of it later on. What about later on in the clip, after the first shot goes up? Like, do you have any different principles after an offensive rebound, or are you just basically trying to, match back into as quickly as possible?
Yeah, we said here in after an offensive rebound, for the sake of simplicity, we just stayed in zone. So for us, it's like the moment we jump into zone in these situations, like let's say there's a deflection as well with 6 seconds on the clock, we still stay in zone for that possession until we have the defensive rebound or they score. Just for the sake of simplicity, there's not much.
And when you are teaching, like, so when this is implemented, I'm assuming this is all stuff that you had taught before, and then there's a play call to know that that's what you're doing. It's rarely an audible in the middle of a set, so to speak.
Here actually it is, because it's whenever there's a post up, we have our guy yelling out our call for a zone.
Right.
As soon as it is. But the big to small back screens, we try to teach it so that the guys recognize it by themselves and call it out. But in that game, we had the calls and we knew what kind of actions would come after what call, so we could help our guys out. But normally we teach our guys the moment there's a post catch. Hey, whoever recognizes it, yell. So we jump into zone. And even if it's if it's a mistake, we ride with it. Like if we run through the wall, we run head first through the wall. Call it's king, exactly. As we say. Call it's king.
So in your scouts, would you put something in that would be like, here's the list of the potential defenses that we could play in this game, so to speak? Be ready for any of these? Or
I used to, but I don't do it anymore. I just keep that for our coaches. We'll tell them, hey, look, we go, that's our plan A, that's our plan B. But we just, us coaches, we're a bit superstitious at times. So I don't put the plan B in there because I assume plan A will work.
Nice. So this next clip, there's a bit of a chin action here that ends up with a top ball screen. You guys hedge it. And there's a deep roll on it and a drive from the right side. And then this one basically was just, does this set make your scout as an action that they would run consistently, that that they're going to run type deal? On that chin action, what are, like, I noticed you switched there. What are your philosophies for it? And then tagging rollers off of the hedge, what are your philosophies on that as well?
On that set, and I think that's maybe also an interesting part of it. This is like a multi-option set for them. They can also enter the ball to the other guy, and then it would trigger a big to small back screen, which would have allowed us to jump into zone if the ball wasn't entered to number 7. So what we told our guys, hey, deny number 7 as much as possible so he doesn't get the ball. Unfortunately, he does get the ball. So that's like where we failed, unfortunately. But what that shows, in my opinion, at times, if you, as I said in the beginning of the show, if you destroy an entry, maybe you can destroy the whole play. If you can destroy an entry concept, maybe you can help yourself. And yes, in that way, it made the scout. With the hard hedge, we usually always tag from the low or help from the low 2-man.
Right.
Since this is a Spanish pick and roll, there is no low 2-man. In a Spanish pick and roll, we go from the weak side low man. So this would be number 6 on the right side corner.
Love it. Love it. So then my question,
which we obviously don't do here, because why we want to go from the guy who's in the right corner is what happens here. If the point guard or the ball handler sees number 4 popping out now, and our number 99, that's the kick that has the awkward shot, if he gets caught on the roll, boom, a little bit more. Now that's an open shot.
Right.
Actually, we do a bad job of helping here.
And so then my next question was going to be, where do you help from on this drive after the Spanish pick and roll and the deep roll on it? Where would your help be on that?
This is a tough one, because normally what we tell our guys after normal hedges, basically we're a no middle team, or no middle team in the sense that play your guys straight up and do not get beat middle. It's not like we influence baseline, we go face to face basically.
Right. Okay.
But once a hedge happens where we have to X out, we tell our guys on X out closeouts to send the guys middle, because normally if there's a 2-man side here, so let's imagine there's another guy in the corner, normally you're caught in the 2-and-1, and there's that extra pass coming. So there we want to influence middle because there's more congestion. Here, however, and here is where we're, how should I say, like the fight, the battle between your principles and the scout comes in. This guy, first of all, there is no second guy. And second of all, this guy is left-handed drive every time on a catch.
Interesting.
So now the thing is, it becomes, what do you do now? So we got mad at our guy in the beginning. And we're like, why do you let him drive left? But at the end of the day, when we had video with him, look, he just does what he's taught, with just the exception that there's not an extra player. So the only thing that you could hold against our number 6 here was, okay, he misread the situation. But if we're talking about broader concepts, he did everything correctly, according to the broader concept. So I think these kind of things are, in my opinion, sometimes super tricky to handle.
Yeah, so for me, when I looked at this, I don't know where to help from. So when I was asking that question, I was actually asking it like, solve it for me, because like, contrary to what you're saying, I think on this closeout, I would probably send sideline baseline.
Mm-hmm. Thing is though, with sideline baseline, so we have this guy coming back, and if he seals him topside now, number 9,
right.
if
the layup along the baseline,
it's a layup. So what we would normally do, and I think number 66 also here doesn't do a good job off of the hedge. He needs to sprint down to the nail and give a hard stunt to protect that drive.
Right.
So to clog that lane. Basically, we're a team that stunts a lot, and we're willing to give help from one pass away. We're very willing to peel switch. If you listen to the Slapping Glass podcast with Will Voigt, to get an idea with what peel switching means, this is something we would do. At least we stunt really hard.
Shout out Dan. We had him on a couple weeks ago. It was a great time, actually.
I saw, yeah.
So that last one, by the way, is an action I like. I'm probably going to steal that because it's kind of like, it puts a lot of confusion, a lot of stress on the defense to try and play it correctly. Offense, an action I like at the end here from the 2 side. I was wondering what your team concept was. Like, are you a burn the worst shooter? Is it a read, react, cut type deal? Mm-hmm. I'll let this get in, but I mean, basically there's a cutter coming up the gut, and then we were coming to ball screen like a step up, and he attacks the 2 side. When he attacks the 2 side going towards his strong hand, the man who's in the right corner back cuts, and the guy who's on the right 45 just, hits the drift, and they end up getting the ball in the drift and shooting the 3. It's a great action for you guys. I'll reel that back to the beginning. Give me the rundown, sir.
So what we would normally, this is a set that we want to use to get our pick and pop picks into the action, but our secondary ball handler does a great job of rejecting the screen. He's really great at that. Here with that, normally, if can you run it back a little bit, just to the point of the screen, basically. So here it's by design. All of our good shooters are at the point guard spot, or let me rephrase that. All of our point guards are good shooters. So by play design, we have the better shooter here most of the time. If it were the other way around, what we would ask our guys to exchange before the drive happens, if they can do it, because on this middle drive, we always want to have our baseline guy cut behind the defense so we can create space for the drift. So that's an offensive automatic for us.
It's an automatic, right?
Yeah. So ideally, we have the better cutter cutting and the better shooter coming down. But if it's not that way, we prioritize space and scrambling the defense. So if this is the worst shooter, we're okay with that. Either he shoots it anyways, because I think we have to live off offensive aggressiveness by all of our players, or we re-attack.
So what's interesting to me is both players, in my opinion, from this 2 side ended up being open. Like you have 12 on this back cut, in my opinion, and you have 10. Obviously, he knocks this down.
Right. Yeah.
This was a set I like. It's just a back screen of the big, and I mean he ends up getting blocked, but I just liked it and wanted to throw it in. I was wondering what secondary, tertiary options might be out of it if you don't get the lob, and
so
you run it multiple times in a game. Like obviously teams tend to catch on when you do something like that.
We last year we put an extreme emphasis on off-ball screening, so we ran that action, the Carolina break action, out of transition. Where it was actually more effective than it is on silent out of bounds, because teams are caught off guard oftentimes. The continuation would be pretty simple, actually. So we would have back screen, flare screen, and then that's our 4-man setting that second screen. He would pop out, hand it off to our point guard who's inbounding the ball, and then the 5-man would sprint back up into a middle pick and roll with the 4 lifting behind.
Love it. There was one more sideline out of bounds here that I liked.
Which is basically, that's the same action. Now this is the continuation. It's just that we go with the big ball lineup now. And here we have handoff into mid pick and roll.
Right. And then wide open 3 up top because the guy ends up dropping to the nail.
Right.
Yeah. I got a question. Give me 1 second here. Is that commonality for your side OB actions that you already run?
I can unmute. So
go ahead.
Your side OBs, are you running action that you already run out of set piece? Is that what you're looking at, or do you have specific?
That's specific. Like we decided we liked our transition action from last year a lot, but we didn't. How to say, like we didn't have the. Let me rephrase that. We needed to run more and have more early 3-point shots, as I said in the beginning. So we didn't think that action fit our transition that much anymore, but we wanted to keep that action in some way. So we just put it in as a side out of bounds. So to answer your question, all of our out of bounds plays draw from something that we do or used to do in the past. Our baseline out of bounds, it's the same thing, but we didn't see fit out of a man-to-man action anymore. Does that make sense?
Chris, you still there?
Yeah, I think.
I got you. Sorry, I didn't see the chat.
All good.
And all right, so the next one's a transition one. Let me just get my video back up. Sorry. Transition one, I think you end up with 3 to the ball. And then I was wondering on the help on the second penetration here. So there's the 3 to the ball. And then my question was, who should be helping on the penetration there? I mean, obviously you shouldn't be getting beat, but you got a little dump off into the paint in transition. 3 guys all go to it, collapse very nicely, pass to the wing. He attacks baseline. Nobody comes, beats him, misses a challenging layup and ends up out of bounds. Not sure about the call from the official, but give me a rundown as to what you see. Yeah, we'll take it.
So I think the first thing, we're really big on challenging. We don't say stop the ball, because I think when we tell our guys to stop the ball in transition, oftentimes they get flat-footed. So we want to challenge the ball early. And here the ball basically comes unimpeded to the free throw line extended. So that's the first problem we have.
Right.
We're not a team that wants to protect the basket first. No, we want to challenge the ball first. Then we want to protect the basket. Then we want to fill the nail, the slant, however you want to call it. So that's the first problem. Second problem is I want to say that we overhelp because our 5-man matches up with our 3-man here, with their 3-man. So I think this help is not necessary, especially considering that this guy is a stretch 5 actually, the guy who's open up top.
Right.
And here on the closeout, again, in scramble situations, we try to teach our guys to influence more middle if the defense, has collapsed already. Because now, if you see the clip, like we have our number 9 arguing for a traveling call. But if we send a middle, there's more congestion. So we, especially with us not being that tall and that athletic, we don't have like a shot blocker that can roam the baseline. If we see a chance to influence somebody into a scrambling situation towards the middle, we'll take it. So I think here, especially with us collapsing and expanding, I think it's tough to give sufficient baseline help here.
Interesting. So then basically the short answer to the summary answer to my question is instead of worrying about where you should be helping from, he should be trying to influence the ball towards the middle instead of towards the baseline.
That. And the other thing is this guy is solely driver. Like right. I think he's below 20% from 3. So you could also argue, hey, close out short on him. That's another thing.
I actually feel that that's enough of a gap that he shouldn't be still getting beat baseline there. This guy's he's obviously got a motor, he can go, but he shouldn't be able to get by you that easily. What do we got next? We got a defending clip, the forgotten role after a reject, and after being beaten this badly, do you worry about where help should come from, or is it just like, hey, do better up top here?
Can't be rejected. That's pretty simple. Like if we get rejected, everything falls apart right in the beginning.
So for anybody listening, basically we get to the right side. It's pass and follow, and then he rejects it, attacks. The fill in behind kind of places the next defender in between, and the guy that had set the screen just rolled right to the basket, wide open layup.
If we come back to just 1 second, Mike, because I think this is something where we can come back to what Melik asked me in terms of video. Here, number 99, he gets rejected on the screen, which is a no-no. But then if we get beat, we tell our guys, run to where your help came from. And if you see the clip, he just stands there. And this is something that we would call out. It's like, look, okay, you made a mistake. You got beat not according to our principles, or you didn't adhere to our principles, but now you got to sprint and fix your mistake. If you screw up, you switch out. Sorry, Mike, please go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I was actually thinking about this a couple of weeks ago and listening to a Ryan Pannone session in which he says as well, like, rejecting a ball screen happens a lot, but we never train on it. Mm-hmm. So why don't we train on not only our ball coverage, but also on what we will do on a reject instead of like helping where your help is coming from? That's okay. But just as well as just having your schemes, is if he goes over it, the same for having schemes for when they reject it.
For me, it's actually, I think it comes back a little bit to what I said about the scouting. I want my plan A to work. It's like, for me, I stress, don't get rejected, don't get rejected, don't get rejected. I want to say I've never thought about, and I've heard that session as well, I've never really thought about talking about what happens if our plan A goes wrong, outside from, hey, you get beat, you got to sprint to the next help. So for me personally, and you know, I mean, we've known each other for all of lockdown now. I'm pretty much pragmatic person. I think it should be enough. But in reality, if we look at the clip, it isn't. So, you know, who's right now? I don't know. But for me personally,
either way, you give up something. Like if you allow him to go over the pick, you give up something as well. Well, to be honest, with rejecting, you give up something as well. With allowing the reject, you give up something as well. So And I've really been thinking about it, and I don't know the answer to this. So for me, it's still like, okay, what do other coaches think and feel about it? Because honestly, I think it's a great way to talk to players about, okay, what are we going to do if they reject? Because that's still a big part of the game today is rejecting.
I think the way I would handle this in this situation, if you can run the clip a little bit forward. Okay, stop. Now, if the big switches onto the ball handler because he's responsible for stopping the ball, I need my guy who got beat sprinting down, either to fall into the legs of the rolling big, so he cannot take a leap for an alley-oop or a dunk, or if my foreman who's at the nail drops down, he just needs to read where the next help comes, and we just need to scramble out. I think for us at least, or for me, when I watch that clip, what I'm missing here is the readiness for our initially beaten defender to scramble back into help.
Yeah, well, I mean, so in my opinion, 99 is beat from here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? So, like, he doesn't even really get hit on the pin down. He's kind of ball watching from right about there.
Yeah.
That space is what allows the allows the rejection.
Mm-hmm.
PG-13.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, because, you know, with the space that he's catching, he's trying to slow down and he takes off on him from there.
Mm. Yeah.
As well as number 66, because he isn't in the game as well. If you go back to number 66, he doesn't know what he's doing, in my opinion. If you go back all the way.
My next question, I'm glad you point that out. For number 66, when 10 dives here, you had talked about this gentleman here, 99, I believe was his number, sprinting to where his help came from. Would you teach this player, 66, to not leave until he arrives, or to at least, you know, get some sort of contact in there? Or is he correct to space out and go back to his, in your opinion?
I think he needs to read number 7 of the opposing team, number 7's eyes, and play in between a little bit more. He releases a little bit too early for my liking.
I think I've actually got another clip where the guy ends up, it's a high-low pass sort of thing, and he kind of ends up having to toggle between. And I think he does about as good a job as you can in that. Like, I mean, you're outmanned. You're going to lose probably, but he does about as good a job as he can in that opportunity.
I mean, what I don't like here is, first of all, he doesn't see his initial man, number 22, and at the same time, he inches out to where there's nobody here. So I think in this case, he needed to be in a little bit longer, because he could have played 2 guys with the spacing anyways.
Right.
Yeah. But again, and that's an important thing that I didn't understand it until, I want to say, last season. Back in the days, I would have given 66 the business for not helping, when in reality, the whole thing starts with number 99. If he manages to contain his guy, we're safe. So that's a thing. Like, you can talk about your schemes and your concepts and how to rotate and how to scram switch out. I think it's an important thing to know. But what I found myself, like, many times, I forgot about the most important part, and that was controlling the basketball. And these clips serve as a perfect reminder for that, in my opinion.
Well, so do these conversations, in my opinion, right? Like, so if I'm 2 years ago watching this film by myself, I'm also probably upset at 66, as opposed to sitting down with some coaches who are like, yeah, but what about this? Back it up a few seconds and look at that. And like, this is really where the problem is. And you're outnumbered from that point going forward. Defense, lost man rolling to the basket. So this is another one that's fairly similar, where somebody just sort of ends up getting lost here. So we punch the ball after some transition. He faces up. There's a fill behind. We give him the ball. And then on the fill behind cut, the gentleman who's on the right elbow just kind of slips. His man goes to take the fill behind, and nobody recovers to him. Wide open layup.
So what we see here is once the ball is punched inside, normally, again, stop here, please. Normally, the guy who defends number 7 should have dropped down now, because now we're in the zone. So the biggest guy in our front row, number 9, who's now at the right side elbow, should have dropped down. Instead, number 66 goes. And now he realizes that he's on the top row. So our 3 and our 4 are in the top row now, which could have been avoidable, but we'll take it. But now he overhelps on that drive. And number 66 also moves out, because he doesn't think that he's responsible for being in the zone, and now the opening is here. So the problem again starts with number 9 missing his zone drop.
Interesting.
Because then,
I don't think, shy of hearing you say that, I would notice that at all.
Because now they don't talk, and you see like number 66 and number 99, they're like, and I think also a problem is number 99, number 66 shouldn't have cut with the guy.
Yeah,
because on the zone he should have like kept the spot on the left elbow, left high side, and sent number 9 down. So I'd argue that's it's a breakdown in communication, if anything.
Interesting. Like it. Thank you. What do we got? This is another one where it's you get some cutters from the weak side after punching the ball, and he just basically gets a free layup out of it. This, I think, really, I was just asking, like, do you have like we call it smash the flash. So our top guy here would be number 10, should be doing sort of both. Sometimes we talk about pistols, but he should be getting a forearm in his chest on this. This cut. He ends up going to like what would be the bottom right, and the gentleman that was guarding initially, the person who was in the corner. I don't know if these gentlemen think that they're starting to zone because it's been posted.
That's again, that's what we were supposed to do, and this is where we said, like, look, guys, at the end of the day, we're lucky that we're only down by whatever. I think we're down 8, because it's not that we like how to say, like, that we didn't attack or weren't aggressive. It's just like also number 0 here. The moment the ball's punched in, of course, this is a long way for him, but he just jogs down. It's not like he sprints down here.
He does slide push at the last minute, like I got caught.
So these things, like I think these scores they had against Arizona at near the end of the first half came down to not communicating and not being ready enough, in my opinion. Right. But if the situation presents itself like it does here, because also the second problem was, if you watch, we again had our point guard and our shooting guard in the back row of the zone, and not our second big guy dropping down.
Right.
So I'd argue, obviously, number 10 could move up to bump that. Then we could exit out behind. But again, readiness, and also the other thing is, if you go back to the pass in, what I didn't like about this set is like there's 21 seconds and the ball goes into the post with 19. Remember what I said in the beginning? We didn't want to give them time to dissect our defense. So if they punch it in with 19 seconds on the clock, we have a long way to go.
For sure. We're just moving into the second half, but Stefan, I wanted to ask, I mean, I had asked you for an hour of your time. We're a little bit beyond. Are you okay time-wise to keep going?
Oh, I'm an owl, man. We can go to 6 in the morning. Not like I'm going to sleep that much anyways.
Love it. Appreciate.
I hope I don't bore the guys. That's the other.
No, I actually think you've been awesome. I really have been enjoying your perspective so far. Thank you. Defending, it's a set I like. Did it make your scout guarding the zip cut and the baseline cut? I was wondering sort of what you should be doing with it. So, I mean, basically they dribble up to the right wing, right wide slot. There's a zip. And at the same time as the zip cut coming up, there's the gentleman from the help side cutting across to the ball side corner. And there's a pin in screen from your big. He knocks down this shot, I believe. Misses it, actually, but he has a wide open look at it. So does the set make it? It's the first ATO of the second half. What do you think of it? How could you do better? What would you do different, etc.?
So especially with our 3 to 5 being interchangeable in this setup, we could have switched. But again, it boils down to basics. We didn't have that ATO in the scout. I've seen it a couple of times since that game, actually.
Right.
But number 6 needs to do a better job of staying connected with this guy. Like the moment he sees him cutting, he needs to, like, even a little bit before that, he needs to initiate contact and stay connected to him. Here you see, he just goes behind his back and he's gone. And that's all the separation a good shooter like this guy who used to play in the German first league needs. And so, yeah, we were lucky. We dodged the bullet there. So, but again, with our guys, since 3 and 5, 3 to 5 can be interchangeable in these sets, this would be a great option to switch here, in my opinion, for our guys.
This one, I found an interesting clip here. I thought there were some varied coverages in it. And then I was wondering if on this particular set or as an adjustment at halftime, you would move to trying to guard the pick and roll with only 2 and not tagging on it. So wing pass, side ball screen. And on this, they just advance the ball, but you got one type of coverage here.
Mm-hmm. That would be the next, right? Yeah.
You get into the butt screen as he attacks the other direction. And you could call this a huge drop and over if you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they fumble it a little bit and they get into another action. And here comes one more ball screen where, again, it's a drop and over. But it looks like here, in my opinion, you help, but it's late. I was wondering if maybe you had decided to play it with 2 or if he was just late.
He was just late. That being the simple answer. Because as I said, we want to hedge as much as possible. So, for example, this would be like a borderline situation between hedge and next coverage.
Okay.
Because our guys sometimes struggle with recognizing if the pick and roll goes to the 2-man side. So we said the further out the pick and roll starts, so if it's a side pick and roll, it automatically goes to the 2-man side, always, or most of the time. So we try to ease our teaching. So here's the next. We don't need to fully rotate because he passes it away. But now, unfortunately, our 5-man gets disconnected. So we have an emergency drop, which we play 2-on-2 as much as possible. So here we come back to the terminology by Quinn Snyder and the Utah Jazz. On that pick and roll, if we drop it here, on that last one. Oh, you can go forward to the last pick and roll.
Oh, to the last one. Sorry.
Yeah, to the last one, yeah. So here, actually, that would be, stop. If this would be a next situation for us, or like a borderline one, because what we don't want to do is now on that pick and roll, have our number 9 who guards number 22 in the right side corner, commit in fully, and then we give up the pass behind and the shot. That's what we don't want to do. So what we also in the drop tell our guys, limit your help as much as you can. Like mind on the shooter and body in paint. So you see here on a late pass, we are too late in the help, but that's more by design than anything else. But again, this shouldn't be a drop, actually.
It should not be, you're saying?
It should not be a drop, no.
So I imagine there's kind of a line here that you utilize for where next coverage would stop and the next coverage would start.
The slot line, basically.
Yes.
Everything inside the slot line would be a normal hard hedge.
Do you find that teams play with that line against you to try and get varied coverages and confuse you at all, or no?
Not that I've mentioned. I think they don't do it on purpose, but I think we struggle with these situations at times. And here's like for us, I think it's easier if our number 77, our 5-man is connected, because also here, if you're doing it wrong in terms of like calling out the wrong coverage, as long as you're connected and do the right thing, then like let's say they play the pick and roll over here on the side where the red basketball court intersects here. Right. And for some reason, our big guy calls out hedge. As long as he does what he's supposed to do, we're cool with that. Again, as we say, call is king. Of course, we'll tell him, look, in terms of tactical decisions, it makes more sense to next here, whatever. But as long as 5 guys are on the same page, we're totally fine with everything.
Call is king. I like that expression. Still end up getting the block. You live with it. And then we're going back in the opposite direction. This was, I was wondering what the cues for the rescreen were up top, or if he's just playing with it. And the deep roll versus the drop is one that is rare to me. I see usually the short roll utilized more as a counter to drop coverage. And then I put in the comment playing through the 2 side. I don't remember what I meant by that right now. Give me 1 second. So there's
the cue. The cue is he doesn't hit the guy first. So that again, that's a combination of normally what we like to do, and I think that's where we are caught in between. We like to use hook screens for our guards, meaning that we can you put your cursor on the sky logo here?
Right here.
Here, yeah. So what we would tell our first big is like if you go to the free throw line, like in a straight line, and we would tell our big if you're first out ahead, take 1 step below the free throw line, break it, and then come back around and set a flat screen with your back to the baseline. We call that hook screens. And I think that's what number 17 wants to do here. because especially our point guard here, number 10, he's a good downhill driver. So we want to get him a flat screen, full speed in transition. So I think they're not on the same page concerning the angle, but also number 10 needs a better job, needs to do a better job of seeing, okay, he screens now towards the opposite corner, preparing the screen, because here they're doing nothing. So they missed, that's the cue for the rescreen.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's a deep roll on the drop, which means basically automatically the play's on the other side of the floor.
Right. Yeah.
Point, and he gets it there. And then playing through the two side, I think I was just thinking maybe like, are we okay with the shot against the long closeout, which I'm sure we are with that particular.
That we are. We wanna if the defense drops, we always want to pass the ball behind the action, because we feel that there the advantage lies for us. The thing that I'm not satisfied with here is the contact of number 17 on the screen, or the partnership of screening between him and the point guard, because against the drop we want to hold our screen half a second longer, so we maximize the space that the big has to guard. And here there's next to no contact, and since number 17 is not a leaper, not a vertical threat, I think he cannot slip drop coverages.
And when he does deep roll, do you teach anything like we've started calling it a Gortat screen down here or whatever? Like I suppose it's not technically a Gortat screen because it's not a deep roll and sit, but in terms of the seal underneath here, do you teach anything like him sealing and holding that to make this out a little bit longer?
Not necessarily the format, because what we gotta say here, I think the number 4 of the black team here clearly overhelps,
right?
Because if you run back to the initial pick and roll, number 7, the defender of the ball screen, is always level with our roller, because number 17 here, he stops deep rolling. Actually, this is a little bit more than a short roll, but not enough for a deep roll in my opinion. So for us, against the drop coverage, this deep roll should be more or closer to the baseline. So in my opinion, if I was coaching the dark team, this is clearly an overhelp by number 4, because now the closeout is way too long. And that's what I said by the drop, where we don't want to help in too much from the backside, because these passes are what kill these drop coverages.
Right.
So what we would tell our big guy, to answer your question, is to seal his initial matchup, which he does, or sort of does, because that's a great way to get a post up in.
And I was saying 99 can shoot the piss out of it, so
he can stroke the ball. Doesn't look like a stroke, but he can.
They go to a jam and under here, which I thought was interesting. I was wondering, I mean, this guy just basically, like you said, he's a good driver. He gets downhill, he gets going. Do you have a package, so to speak, against the jam and under? And I mean, the principles on the offensive rebound. I think the question I was asking is, I mean, over here, I teach my guys a lot to look on the offensive rebound for the quick 3. I'm wondering if you do anything similar there on that.
Yeah, that's what we tell our guys. So we do have actually 2 sets where we try to get our guy downhill.
Right.
That being the hook screen in one set play. And this is actually not that good of a job, but if you come back to where the guy tips it out, so normally there should be a shot already. Even if it's out of a tip out, this is a long close, this is an open shot. I borrows, and maybe you remember this metaphor from my clinic on rising coaches. We like to use this matrix reference, which I stole from Tuomas Isalo. There is no spoon, which means if there's nothing to impact our shooting motion, there's no contest. If you go back to the clip, where you don't have to, because we don't want to run over time, but the last 3 the number 99 hit, if he stopped with his low shot pocket, if he stops shooting anytime he sees a hand, he's not a shooter. But this is an open shot for us, like a wide open one. If he doesn't impact the defender, that is, if he doesn't impact the shooting motion, if you can go up in your shooting motion like you would always do, it's an open shot, no matter what.
He's not there. He's just not there.
Not at all.
Love it. Let's move on. We got, this is the one I was talking about with the low man caught in the toggle. So we get to the ball, just slightly above the nail at the top of the key. And then your low guy underneath is caught between one guy in the paint and one guy in the short corner, does as good a job as he can, and gets a pretty good contest. I think, live with this at that point, but where do you think this breaks down initially from what you guys are doing? So I'll start it over for you.
Mm-hmm. So here we would be in our next coverage. If you can go back a little bit. To be super honest with you, I don't know what we're doing here. Can you advance a little? It seems like we're in zone, but normally we shouldn't be in zone here. He overrotates.
There's plenty of pointing going on, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I know, but like the way he over rotates and the way we rotate behind that switch, normally number 66 would need to move up now. To be honest with you, I think we played like a triangle and two in the sense of 3 guys were in zone and 2 guys were man to man without them realizing.
Right.
To be super honest with you.
Not a purposeful triangle.
No.
Ended up happening.
It's like we tried to confuse everybody in the building, and everybody on your podcast as well. So, but concerning the toggle, I think, as you said, with their athletic 4-man pinning our point guards, and their 2-man hitting a tough mid-range shot, I think we're super okay with that shot.
Yeah.
The way number 6 defended it.
This is just talking about the hedge. I was just, what are your teaching points? How do you introduce it to your guys? More of a simplistic one, obviously, but it's in the center of the floor, deep roll again. How do you recover? And then here is the baseline side double that I was talking about, where you come in to get it, you end up with the ball.
Okay, if we go back to the starting point of the pick and roll. So what we tell our guys, and here number 99 does a way better job than the one time where he got rejected. Well, we want to arm bar the guy, so we want to lock the hip of the guy. Normally we play an arm length away, but if we see a screen, we want to over pressure because we want to get over the screen. Here in our 4-man defense, he hedges out aggressively, great timing. 2 slides up the floor, high hands, and now our help would come actually from the low guy on the left side. So this is what I said earlier. We don't want to help from the 1-man side because this is a long closeout now for us. Right. So actually, number 66 should be responsible for helping. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, with these kind of things, obviously this is a problem in executing our scheme. But you see, pointing, active early hands, rotating behind number 3 here. I think we're a good team at scrambling if we scramble. So that's like the most important part for us is we need to scramble. Once we're scrambling, we can iron out many mistakes.
So the effort by this gentleman here, I think it's 54.
14.
To get back, get top side, and still bother the ball, in my opinion, is fantastic. It's the sole reason why you end up with that steal. And then we end up with the last play of the quarter. And I'm just wondering, do you practice a lot of end of game stuff? Do your guys know they're just going 5 out and trying to create something? Time and score, obviously. What's factoring in you guys' mind here? It's the last play of the third.
Here we have our guys, or I should say, we tell our guys or ask our guys are in practice rhetorical questions. Like whenever, because again, we're by ourselves not the best team at recognizing mismatches, but whenever head coach or I, we see, okay, there is a mismatch somewhere on the floor, we usually yell, is there an advantage? And then we try to make our guys find it themselves. Here we would have had 2 advantages. And I think we did a good job of pursuing the bigger one because number 27, the guy who's matched up here on our big, he's a hoss. He can really battle with guys down there. So we said, okay, let's have our point guard go against their 4-man, and then play off of the scramble. Let everything come out in the wash. Because I think for the death of a young team can be against switches and mismatches if you hold the ball and look to dump it inside. Like, and sometimes, as stupid as it may sound, I'm like, hey, guys, just play. Everything will come out in the wash anyways. Just go.
Love it. Do you guys film all of your practices?
Unfortunately, no, because as you see here, this is like a big gym.
Right.
But we have to practice. If you see that court in the back, we have 4 practices going on simultaneously. So we cannot film like this. We only film when we're the only team in the gym, since we're an academy. And in Vienna, basketball is like, I don't know. Let's say it's not the top sport in Austria. I think that's what you can say.
Right.
We have to share gyms with our youth teams, which is great because us as coaches, we always get to see the next crop of young talents. But it's tough for us because we cannot practice and film our practices like we do here.
Love it.
Because this is an automated camera system, key motion. Some of you might know.
You guys have key motion. That's interesting. Nice. Great play. Changing the double side. I was wondering if that's done on purpose as part of the set. Basically there's some screen rescreen action up top, and we end up changing our double side from the one side to the other. And then we attack through a double gap to the left. And then he gets this beautiful drop off in behind.
And this is what we tell our guys, and we're bigs. If they get it right, they're super effective, but we don't get it right. Remember what I said about 17 earlier? When our big doesn't get a deep paint catch, we tell them to get your heels to the baseline and try to hide from your defender. Here, this cut, I think what number 9 wanted to do actually initially is get like flash up and get this advanced pass for a high-low. Okay. That's something we've been doing against Hedges a lot, but he does a good job of getting out of the way, relocating after the drive, and here hiding behind the defender. We really tell the guys, be in the shadow of your defender because he will most likely commit to the ball, and then you're open for a layup. This is something
basically just a penetration principle more than
right. Yeah.
Love it. What do we got? Horn set, guarding against the jet cut. Some people call this a speed cut. I've heard various things for it. But basically, we get a horn set. We're driving to the right side of the floor. We move the ball to the wing. We put it in. And then this baseline cut is what I would call a jet cut, or a speed cut is what I've heard it referred to here in Canada. And, he just drops it in behind for a good look at a layup.
So here to walk you through it, that this is one of the sets we talked about. If you start with the horns, yeah. So here we triple switched on the horns, or X, we call it X switching. You see me here signing the X on the sideline. So we have the 5-man switching out, and here you see the bigger guy takes the roll down low, and the smaller guy stays up top. So now the ball goes inside. Now we are already set up in our zone principles here. And now if he sees that, and he should see that, because there's nobody coming down. So first of all, there's no danger of a corner shooter. And second of all, we want to have 3 guys behind the post up anyways. So if he sees that baseline cut, normally he should go with it. But that's a situation that occurred once in that game, and we didn't prepare it. So that's not on him. That's on us as coaches, or on me as game plan developer for not preparing him. So those are 2 points that, I didn't take care of. That's what we told our guys. We didn't talk about this. The way we would defend this now is if he beats some baseline, he needs to match up, and we're basically in a box and 1 for that cut. But we want to influence him cutting to the middle, again, where there are more people.
Because you guys are an academy and you play with younger guys and older guys together, is it fair to say that you spend a lot of time with your players over multiple years?
Yeah.
Because to me,
for example, this number 66, just sorry to cut you off. In my first go around when I was there, he was in my under 14. And now when I came back, he was my starting point guard on our national championship under 19 team. And he's in his 3rd year with the first team now in the first league. So I've coached him for, I want to say, 6 to 7 seasons.
Wow. Would you say that most guys remain with their same club over a long period of time? Would that be sort of like an absolute? Depends.
Like in a best case scenario for us, they don't, because it means they've outgrown our shoes. And for example, the guy who's inbounding, he left our club at the age of 16 to be with another program to back then we were only a 2nd league club to, catch the air of the 1st league, so to say. Right. And now he came back to be not just a complementary player, but be our main guy on offense. So Like that's the great thing about us. We can develop guys in different settings. Most famously, Jakob Poeltl, the guy who's with the Spurs now.
With the Raptors for a while as well.
With the Raptors for a while, yeah. He's like the most famous alumni of our academy.
Right.
There's a couple of guys who play in Germany as well. Marvin Ogunsipe with Hamburg and Errol Erstek with Bayern. So ideally, Jakob, for example, left us when he was 17. So the earlier reps drafted, right, Chris? The earlier we get him to leave our program, the better for us. The better job we are doing with him.
Nice. Okay, this one is one more defending clip. It looks like you zone up in it. Might be incorrect, but then basically there's a double cut coming down, and after the double cut that comes down, somebody kind of sneaks back into the center. We call this teeing up here. I don't know if you'd be familiar with the phrase, but there's your double cut. And then here we go. We just find some space right in front of the rim. There's a great recovery here, and you guys end up with it. So I don't know, just talk me through it. I didn't really have much on it. I just like the double cut sort of splits you guys and how you would handle this in front type action.
I'm really cool with that clip until the moment number 10 goes down to double. So if you rewind back a little bit. So here on the catch, I don't think that he needs to come down to double from here. I mean, he can because there's nobody in his corner, but he leaves his guy out of sight. And now they distorted our back and front row. Basically, it looks like we're in a 3-2 now. So normally, actually, number 10 should have stayed a little bit lower, and number 3 should have taken care of that cut. But also, if you look at number 7, he's not in a position to like really be dangerous outside of passing. So I think we can cover this one-on-one. So I'm not okay with that double team, to be honest with you.
Right.
Especially considering that at that point he hadn't done that much offensively. But again, with us, it's a lot about scrambling and giving the opposing team unusual looks.
Love it. He does get called for this, but I like the recovery because I think that should have been one there. This is just a really easy one. You guys end up getting iced on the side. It's one of the few examples I could find. I was wondering, it's an empty side ice. I was wondering sort of what your principles or your packages for attacking the ice.
Normally burn cut here, which he does, a little bit late, but still. And then if they late switch it, immediately hit it back to the mismatch. Boom, and then we go.
Right. Love it.
We have one quick hitter I'd like to share a little bit later, how we attack these ice and burn cuts a little bit differently. I'll share a little bit later once we're done. I think that's something coaches might like.
Great. And then this is just one more side out of bounds that they run. It's pretty much getting into the last couple minutes of the game. This is actually a pretty big bucket for them. It brings them within 2. And if I remember correctly, I think there ends up being some free throws that put you back to 80-80 afterwards. But this slob, is it in your scout? How do you feel you played against it? It looks like you're in the 2-3, and I think there's a little too much of a commitment up top.
Yeah, I think there's no number 10 doesn't guard anybody right now. So it's not something we talked about, but at that moment, if you see from the way we're set up, our 4-man and our 5-man got tossed for. I don't comment it here now online. Don't want to get fined. And our 4-man fouled out, so we're here with our small lineup. We said, okay, let's try to cover as much ground as possible with our zone. And here you see just the class and the basketball intelligence of this guy. This is the guy that always makes us problems, Lamisic. I think in this clip, number 10 would have gotten away with just bumping and blocking him at the elbow. There's no way for him to step out here because number 99 can guard the shooter coming out. And if the pass goes back to 4, number 66 would be here to influence the shot until number 10 recovers or even stay with him. So I think this is a screw up by the top row.
And I think we have a question that went into the chat. I'm sorry. No, it's stealing. Saying yes, sir. Here to steal the action. Love it. Love it. And I think we get into the last plays. Give me 1 second. Apologies. Every time I reshare, my video panel of the people in the call disappears. So this is last play of regulation. It's a full court ATO. I thought that was worth mentioning because I'm a FIBA coach as well. For those of you who don't know, there's 25 seconds left on the game clock. If they had advanced the ball in the ATO, shot clock goes to 14. I think the NBA is doing the same thing now as well. So basically they kept it the length of the floor so that they could get one whole shot clock to take advantage, try and get the last or as close to the last shot as possible. Get it in. What did you guys draw up? What was sort of like your go-to? What did you talk about in the huddle there as you're designing everything?
What we normally like is to cause confusion on a switch before the last pick and roll we run. So that's our go-to late game set where we would go with two guys high, one of them being a guard, the other being the big. And normally what we like to do is like screen guard for guard or slip that, flare him out, and then play a pick and roll.
Love it.
See how it pans out. Since we went to overtime, not that well.
So this is the same set you're describing. Just as a heads up, is probably the most common run set in the conference that I'm in. And Chris coaches in Canada as well. I think it's very similar on the women's side in so he's in U Sports and I'm in where do I coach again? CCAA. And I think it's very common that you see both utilizing this set a lot. He kind of gets pinned up and they get nothing out of it. And then, you shot clock violation off the top of the backboard. So they get 1 second on the clock. They get a sideline out of bounds. They advance the ball. What are you talking to your guys about here? Obviously not fouling would be a big one, but do you have an idea what they're going to run? Like, what are you saying in this huddle?
I mean, with 0.7 on the clock, I'm pretty sure it's going to be either a lob or a quick pin down to the top. So what we did is we placed two of our big guys below the rim to block the path for a lob and put our biggest guy, who hasn't really played until that point, in to defend the inbounder to take vision away. So that's like basically what we do is we box and won the zone play.
Right. Love it. Afterwards, I'm going to ask you your viewpoints on not guarding the inbounder and how you feel about it. So I only have like 2 sets or 3 sets from overtime. Here was one. This was just the first play of overtime. How you feel about it more than anything? This is a good set, I thought, by them. It ends up with a handoff reverse, and then you get a back cut as he dribbles to the center of the floor.
Here, what we normally tell our guys is we don't want number 12 to turn the way he does. Because the way he turns, he loses sight of the ball. And we said, like, if we get a back cut, at least you want to be able to deflect the ball. So what we would tell our guys or teach our guys, if you run it back a little bit.
Yep, right to...
Instead of front pivoting.
Control. Sorry.
Number 12 here in the back, instead of front pivoting on the back cut, we want him to drop step because now for a short time, he loses vision of the pass. So we much rather have him control the backdoor cut with his butt or with his back than lose vision of the ball, because then at least he can contest the pass or the floater. So here I'd say if you run it back, I think this middle drive comes off of a hard hedge or of a drop. Yeah, this is like again wall next situation, which we're okay with because again there are people recovering into the middle to the nail, which should make it hard. But the problem is we don't even need to help that much because number 10 does a good job of keeping the ball on his chest. So there's no need for him to lose this guy. But if he loses this guy, he's supposed to drop step so he controls the cut with his butt.
When he drop steps and controls the cut with his butt, do you teach him to back up at all, or is he just basically trying to get a piece of the pass?
Stay connected, and then he needs to read. If he feels that he can get a piece of the pass, go for it. But then he has to have it. You have the freedom to go for it, but then you better have it.
Awesome. Last play, it's the help from the double side. It's an attacking one. I think this is there are free throws after this, but I think this is basically the dagger that ends the game. So just for a situation, you're up 1, there's about 40 seconds left. It's a play call, obviously. What were you trying to get here? And
so we knew that 27 to 8, again, 27, he's a warrior. He's a warrior.
It looks like a guy I don't want to fight in a bar.
Yeah.
He looks like a big, strong guy.
Great guy, but he's a warrior. So, but we knew that he would probably try to pressure a guy. It was like, hey, what we don't want to do now with being up 1 is be complacent and give them the last shot. It's like, hey, if you see a chance to go at him and look to go early so we can get the 2 for 1. And this is a great job, first of all, by our backside 2. They create space. So on a slot drive, for example, we teach the low man to hold the position, move up slightly, but this guy up top, on the 2-man side, needs to aggressively replace. And this is a great pass by our point guard driving, like being under control, whipping it out. I mean, being on the money. That's a gutsy and ballsy shot.
I like it. What
I said in that timeout before, that I remember actually, because long story short, I had for my coach education, I had to like do a presentation how David can beat Goliath. So I read up, like as an introduction for a presentation, read up on the Bible story. And what I like found out and what I didn't know is like he hit him with the stone out of the what do you call it?
The slingshot.
Slingshot, thank you. But that's not the end of the story. He went up to Goliath and cut his head off with a sword. So what we tell our guys, it's not enough to like knock him out or make him dizzy. We need to have the courage to get close, draw the sword, and cut the head of the enemy off. And wow. I think this is what encapsulates. Not being complacent, not being happy with them, just struggling and being dizzy and maybe winning. No, forcing the issue, cutting the head off, and taking the bounty. That's what we told our guys in the huddle.
Love it. Did you? The last question I had about this one was: did you purposely place one of your better shooters here, knowing that they would help from the double side in this?
We have an all shooters lineup here. Those are our 4 best shooters with the driver.
Similar to the Brooklyn Nets, that's a problem that I'd like to have.
Yeah,
where everybody can score the ball. I don't experience that with the level of gentlemen that I'm coaching right now.
But this is actually our best shooter here, and with the 2nd and 3rd best. So the guy who shot the ball is our best shooter.
Nice. And then, like I said, there were free throws in both directions. You guys end up 4 up here. This was really, in my opinion, the last chance they had. There's 30 seconds left. It's a side out. It's an ATO. Again, similar type deal. Did you have an idea of what they were going to run? Did you have an idea of like what you wanted to do in order to defend it? And then after this, it's just the last note says it's just a foul game from that point on.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that we didn't want is number 7 slicing to the cup again. Like that was the one thing we told him, like, hey, whatever happens, don't let Lamisic number 7 get into the high post area and dissect the defense from there. Everything else, stay connected and win the game or close the game with what you've been doing for most of the game anyways. Right. With that being, making life tough for them. So I think here it was more like, I should say, like we played the effort card more than we played the tactical card.
Love it. Give me 1 second, sorry.
Don't worry.
That is the last of the clips that I had. This is a great win, in my opinion. Obviously spent some time going through the game and really went through the stuff that you prepared. If it's okay with you, I'd love to put your email in the description of this video so coaches can reach out, contact you. This, in my opinion, and I say this with no disrespect to any of my other guests, this, in my opinion, has been incredible, Steph. I think you've been very, very open with what you can share, and it's been easy to follow. And I think I've learned a thing or two on here. There's some of these that I definitely go back and watch a few times over, and this will definitely be one of them. So thank you again for taking the time.
Let me just real quick
yeah, absolutely.
show you the quick hitter. I just need to find it. So I don't want to be a tease any longer. Just need to find the right clip. Yeah, here. So what we found, this is an action that I think all of you who were watching clips or clinics during the pandemic, you know, these diamond into pick and roll going towards the 4-man. Can you? Sorry, that's the wrong one, I think. Can you see the clip with blue against yellow?
We have a very dark blue. I'd almost call it black against yellow. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So you notice that where 4-man would space here, so you open up the roll with a small guy tagging here, right? So we have our 4 and 5-men are good at pick and popping. So what we did, or what we do against teams that play us passively, we like to pop that. But now the problem is if we burn cut with the one who initiated the offense, I'll just scroll it back. We don't have our best pick and roll player in any of the pick and rolls. So we don't have him in the first one, nor do we have him in the second one. So what we did, we just changed the burn cut from this guy to this guy. So here we want to baseline cut this guy to the other side, pop here, and now look at the distance this guy has to cover. And that way, first of all, as I said, our point guards are good shooters. We open up a wide open shot for our point guard. And second of all, at the worst, we get an empty side pick and roll with our 1-man. I think that's something interesting, and I'm not gonna pat myself on the shoulder too much. I haven't seen it as much. I don't think I've ever seen it attacked like this on a pop.
Again, please.
Yeah, sure.
It so there is, I believe this is actually a slapping glass video as well, where they're talking about changing the 2-man side,
right? Yeah,
which is I think what initiated this discussion, if I remember correctly, when we were going through it. But like to me, it's fantastic action where like once you change that side and you make that closeout so long, like that guy's in trouble. Like, sorry, buddy, you're not going to make it there.
Yeah. So again, what we have here, basically, it's a reverse angle pick and roll,
right?
Or pick and pop, I should say. But instead of like burn cutting our 1-man, who to be honest with him, like if he cuts down for a layup, it's gonna be tough for him because we're so small. So we said, okay, we just maximize the space, even though we're down pretty big here. Maximize the space and try to maximize the space between the popping big and our point guard.
Yeah, like worst case scenario, if that popping big puts it on the floor and attacks, the guy who's Xing out to that corner has got to stop and show in that drive line, and then that's wide open 3, right? Like,
yeah, and that's something also like we like to use if they triple switch it like this, it's perfect. Also, if they would switch here, we would still pop the guy, reverse it to the other side, and have him dive down, because now it's difficult for the 5-man to switch back, scram switch back from the top. Then we would just skip it and it's open shot. But this is a set, actually probably the set we run the most, or have run the most in the last couple of games.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. Let me wind down the recording here and just say, like, thank you so much again for your time. And then I'll give the usual shout outs that I do, all the coaches that join and are willing to spend their time listening to me blabber on, and all the coaches such as yourself that are willing to be on the call and share the game. I have so much gratitude for. We're pretty locked down in Canada, as I've mentioned before. So this has really, really helped me with my sanity and my love of the game and my development from a personal level. A big, giant thank you to the coaches that I've met through the Rising Coaches Network that have come on and been willing to share the game, and to the Rising Coaches Network, of course, as well. And then in addition to that, next week, we're recording later on this week, but next week from when Steph's is released, will be John Plefka, who is a D2 coach at Post. He played for Bobby Knight. I think that's going to be great to watch, check out, see what he's doing with his ladies at Post. And then beyond that, just, thank you so much for everybody who tunes in, listens, If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be that guy from now on who says that. And then if you're listening in online, I hope I do a good enough job describing the place so you can get an idea of just how wonderful all the stuff that these gentlemen are sharing is. So that's it. I'm going to wind down the recording. Stefan, if you want to hang around for a bit, some of the coaches like to sit around and talk afterwards. I think it's always fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate.
Thanks for having me.